Well, just a moment ago, our producer, Mr. James Spodek, asked me if I was ready to start the program. I lied and said yes.
All right, shut it off.
Along with Mr. George Myers and the aforementioned Jim Spodek, I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen, your host of Talking Racine. And here we are this morning discussing 3 different items. We got a 3-pack here for you. I think I'll run right through them, all 3 of them. Mention them, so you know what's coming up. Yep. The Downtown Arch Project is going to be discussed first, and then the Moody downgrade of Mount Pleasant's credit rating. Moody is what the heck is Moody anyway? They're a financial analysis institution or something.
Some kind of economic group.
Yeah, they talk about other people's money and whether or not they have enough of it, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the pension problem in Racine and Racine County. The pensions being a problem insofar as they're basically unfunded. Anyway, let's move right into the arches. We've got a young lady by the name of Kelly,
right,
who is announces herself as the director of the Downtown Racine Corporation. And she's going to make a comment about the arches. You want to play that, Jim, right away?
My name is Kelly. I'm the director at the Downtown Racine Corporation. I just want to talk about Downtown Racine, that we are on the verge of being the absolute best downtown in the state of Wisconsin.
All right, hold it. How close are we? I mean, are we like just microns from being the best downtown in all of Wisconsin, or is it like how far we got to go?
Nice.
She seems like a nice young gal, but beyond that, I don't know what.
Well, she's a good promoter. I mean, if she's willing to say that about the downtown.
Yeah.
By the way, the Downtown Racine Corporation is a strictly private organization. Its membership is of people who own businesses in the downtown area, and so if they're nearly the first in the state, that's pretty darn good. Yeah. I would say.
Well, bless her heart, but she sounds like she's stringing cliches together like popcorn for a Christmas tree ornament. I mean, the best downtown and unforgettable.
And we are also the economic engine of our community, so we need to invest in our downtown.
Okay. Sorry, but
you got a problem with engines, George?
Yeah, the downtown is not an engine of economic of the community. It just doesn't work that way. Really, the downtown is a thermometer. It kind of measures how well the environment is doing around it. If you have enough economic activity in the community, there'll be a lot of shoppers there with a lot of money, and they go in, and the downtown is very affluent. If the community is broke and foreclosures and because of taxes and whatever, the downtown is not going to do real well. And my problem with when you start emphasizing the downtown and you say if we get the downtown going, it'll get the rest of the community going. It's like setting a thermometer in a cold room, and in order to get you take a match and you hold it underneath the thermometer to get the temperature to read higher and think now the room's getting warmer.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It sure looks good.
It makes it look like something's going on there, but it's really not. And the Downtown Racine Corporation has done a fantastic job, considering that we're continuing to lose population.
That's
and
true.
We have the
They're
highest unemployment in the state. Yeah, and yet they managed to get the people shopping downtown. So they really are doing a very good job, considering how poorly the rest of the community.
And they're friends of yours, and you won't dare say anything bad about them. You guys are watching.
Go ahead, say that,
right? We are also one of the main tourist destinations. With that, I think the proposed arches would really define our downtown district. When you think about leaving a lasting impression on our tourists and visitors, think about Cedarburg and the 3rd Ward. Those arches are one of those things that
I'm getting a little tired hearing about the 3rd Ward. The 3rd Ward is part of Milwaukee's downtown. They had some very unique features there, including a river that went right by.
We have a river.
But it's not. Ours was surrounded more by manufacturing.
Well, not anymore. Or they're tearing it down.
Well, yeah.
Whereas
theirs went right through the downtown area, and people, and so they could get things going alongside.
You had investors coming in.
It had some unique things, and they did a good job down there. That is true. I'm not knocking them for that. but it doesn't mean that we can take Racine and build. And Milwaukee isn't built around the Third Ward either. I mean,
Exactly.
it's a
No,
big
not
city.
at all.
They relied on a lot of other things to kind of help recover some things, and they've done a very poor job of recovery.
It was kind of
after
like
that.
an expansion of the pre-existing downtown playground.
It would be the Third Ward.
Yeah,
Would be,
yeah.
it was more like that. So it's like I just
Now, the whole thing that she's talking
the
about,
third
basically-
ward I think was used wasn't it when they were talking about Machinery Row? Was that
Yeah, they-
yeah,
was
yeah.
that mentioned in
Yeah,
there?
exactly.
It keeps being
Yeah.
drawn in as an example.
Well,
Why
all
would
we
we need to
look- we
spend
can-
millions of
yeah.
dollars in this and millions of dollars there and all that? Let's not talk about the Third Ward. Let's talk about Racine. So that's,
Well, and her whole project that she's discussing here, the initiative that she's bringing forward is the arches that they want to, and I assume there's more than one.
I think it'd be one on either end of Main Street.
Yeah, that they want to put
Yeah.
over the top of the street.
that's what they saw the picture of there, right? Okay.
What did you say? Welcome to historic Racine, or
Something like that, yeah, historic Racine. Right?
We got a picture of it here.
Yeah.
Historic downtown Racine. Well, I don't know how much history is left there anymore. I mean, well, go ahead and,
Yeah.
and flip her back on there.
That stay in your mind when you leave. You feel like you were in a real destination, and I think that's what something like the Arches can do in downtown Racine. So I just want to say that the Downtown Racine Corporation has fully backed the idea of these arches, and we're just looking for the city support so that we can then look in the private sector as well as getting them more involved, knowing that the city is behind the idea of these arches. So thank you.
I'm wondering, well, she didn't mention it there, but we know that they're talking about funding a study
Right.
for this.
Right,
And
10,000.
come up with $10,000 to come up with some kind of a design.
They want that from the city, or is that
Yeah.
we're just going to raise the money?
Well,
And
I,
I
think,
think we
from tourism, there's a fund, the tourism fund or something. I want
yeah,
10
from the
grand.
room tax or
Yeah,
something,
something
like that.
like
I would like to see students get involved, and say, have a contest, or,
Yeah.
design these arches or design a gateway to the community. It doesn't have to be an arch. An arch is certainly a good idea. It's been done in other cities and communities. But that's another thing I object to. Racine will go somewhere and you'll see something and they'll go, we need to have that in Racine. I mean, the Imaginarium was a perfect example of
Yeah.
that. And it never came to fruition.
Uniqueness is not, Racine does nothing really very unique. I mean, now I'm going to go on a little bit of a play on 6th Street, which I was associated with back in the middle, 2007, 2008, 2006, 2008. We were going to put up an arch too.
Yeah.
I thought you had some experience with an arch, yeah.
Actually, we were going to use Albert Paley, who was a renowned iron and metal work. He did the gates of the St. Louis Zoo.
And all the animals are still in there.
They're still there and
So,
they're
yeah.
doing good. But I'm going to show us, some of this stuff,
Success.
when you look at it, I mean, it makes a statement. And a lot of it was going to be roots from the Root River. We actually had a plan. We brought in the Conservation Design Forum, Chicago, Bill Browning from the Rocky Mountain Institute. We Energies was definitely involved. We were doing heated sidewalks. I mean, it was very, very unique.
Well, what happened to the arch idea?
Well, it got blown out by the city. I mean, the city,
Oh.
here's really what happened was the DRC at the time looked at it and thought, oh my gosh, these guys are, they're actually, it's a private group of people, merchants on 6th Street. We had our own art show and all the rest. And that we have to dissolve that because they cannot be in, because we're doing this. You can't do that. And we really had...
Well, they looked on you as competition or something?
A lot of times, yeah, it really
that's
was, and I
unfortunate.
think, and it was, and of course, we had pervious pavement we were bringing in. I want to connect the plan. It's the 6th Street Enhancement Plan, and
Can you make it available for people?
I am, and she should
Okay.
look at it because that really was brought together by some great people
Yeah.
all over the country, all funded privately, and we had funding for it. And if at the time Rick Jones brought in a company called Earth Tech, which was exactly the opposite of what you wanted to do. We wanted pervious pavement. We had huge 6-foot lights that would hang in the center, all reconstructed out of reused material. Just beautiful. Artist was going to make. We had an artist contracted to do that.
I bet a lot of people don't know what pervious concrete is.
You actually, it was going to be heated pervious. So
Yeah.
basically, we had heated concrete or ground heated.
Basically, it
Pervious.
soaks water.
Right, the water
passes
goes through.
it,
You didn't
so-
need storm sewers. What it was, the focus really was to bring in environmental companies to say, hey, you can have an office here in downtown Racine. And that company would be very proud of, or possibly had been participating in that 6th Street design. And that was the overall. It was a bigger picture than just saying, we're going to be pretty like this Arches. They really have to build an economic, when she talks about an economic engine, you have to build it. You can't just come in here and say, oh, we're going to make it pretty and they're just going to show up. That's what my objection is with low-income housing coming into Racine with the current director, Amy Connolly. She doesn't get the idea that just because you put people into it and they scurry around doesn't make activity. You have to bring in a reason for people to come to the community. You know, I want to come here because this was designed by Elder Pitt. We have a lot of history that we can utilize. But
you also have to
have
have Mount Pleasant faced this years ago. They were concerned about losing their young people,
Right.
and they were talking about putting up playgrounds and theaters
Right.
or whatever. And no, they need a job to go to.
Exactly.
That's what they're mainly looking for. They leave Mount Pleasant, they leave Racine because they want to raise a family, and they have to go someplace. where
See,
they
George,
can
at
get a
this
job.
time, I
And
think
when you talk about your
the plan was to bring environmental companies
That's
in
right.
from
They would
all
come
over the
in.
country.
Right.
That's why we brought the best of the best in.
Right.
And I'll be honest with
This
you.
was like about 20 years ago, wasn't it?
No, this was in 2005, 2006.
2005?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't
we
think
were
it
at a
was that
building, and the Rocky Mountain Institute is renowned worldwide. And Bill Browning came in and did a presentation. And Rick Jones sat right near me and said, this is a bunch of bullshit. And I thought, you don't even have a clue what you're looking at. And and we brought in Conservation Design Forum. We brought in, Margot Mazer Design. We had brought in a lot of different artists too that really had the idea and looked into the history of Racine and then decided how to go about environmental. The idea was to create an environmental city and bring in all of them to participate with it. As they participated, they would open up offices, and then this would be the spot.
Right, that's
that we
their,
could-
like their
right.
central offices and stuff.
Correct.
Now they come in. And
Now it's
there's
outside your
jobs
door.
there. Yeah.
But it was privately funded. But Earth Tech won out, and that's why when you go down 6th Street, you see those packs with the weeds in it. That was their. We're going to give those guys because we were having deep-rooted plants that would have absorbed groundwater.
Right.
And so they put these catch basins in with basically now they're all full of weeds, but that really was not how that design was. But I'll put the design up and you can take a look at it. But yeah, anyway, my
yeah.
speech.
Well, I would recommend that they hold a contest
Yeah.
to design these arches and get the students engaged, get the city more engaged. You know, make people
of
involved.
ownership.
So they, yeah, exactly, pride of ownership.
Pride of ownership, and that's what
rather
you
than
need to do.
spending $10,000 for some out of town firm to design things. I mean, we see where that goes a lot of times.
Oh, you had to look at Monument Square. I
Look
mean,
at
big
you
blocks
look at
down-
Monument Square. You look at the stage down at the festival site. I mean,
Yeah, if it's just going to be an arch and that's it, you're not going to accomplish much.
Yeah.
It's just
Right.
not the way you bring in wealth and
but it's a good
prosperity
start.
to a
It's a good
community.
start. We don't
Right.
mean to discourage you. We just say more, more. Get more people involved. Okay,
Right.
let's move on. Let's move on to Mount Pleasant. I grew up in Mount Pleasant, so I'm not really a native of the city of Racine. And recently, Moody, which is the financial evaluating services of some kind or another, it's like
Other bond
it's like a credit rating. Like if you get your credit rating from Equifax or one of those. This is for municipalities and larger corporations. And they recently downgraded Mount Pleasant twice. They went from AA1 to AA2, and now it's at AA3. And
Oh, did they get to 3? I don't know. Well,
yeah, it's down to 3.
it?
Yeah.
AA1 to AA2 with a stable rating. Stable that's a stable rating. When they went to AA3, it was then it was to a what was it called then?
Well, I think it's
a different
confusing.
rating,
AA3. I mean, what the heck does that mean? People will look at that and go, "Well, we're AA3."
Well,
I mean, what,
you know where it's going. It's
why not
going into
really
Foxconn.
good?
Again, it goes
Excellent.
into Foxconn.
Pretty good, not so good. I mean, it would be a lot more understandable if they did something like that. But yeah, this is definitely related to Foxconn.
Absolutely.
It's been downgraded because the town of Mount Pleasant, or village of Mount Pleasant, I'm sorry, has borrowed a whole buttload of money to buy land and,
Let me
and
give you the,
expand infrastructure for Foxconn. So
me
now
give
they're
you-
deeply in debt.
yeah. Let me give you Moody's A1 to A2 is a stable ratings outlook. A2 to A3 is a negative ratings outlook. So it's that's definitely gone down from
So-
positive to stable to negative.
So
Yeah.
the statement from Mount Pleasant, they came up and Dave DeGroot, the president or
The village of Mount Pleasant is proud of its strong credit rating, which is the result of our long track record of effective budget management. The village has seen strong interest in its past bond offerings, which we expect to continue. Well, I wouldn't get my expectations too high if you're down to double A3, because that's not
and
what
it's-
people are looking for when they're looking to making investments in bonds.
It's got a current debt of $35.5 million, and they're looking at one going up to $147.2 million. That when it went that big jump.
Well,
that's
it's
when-
going to
that's
go a
when
lot
it's a
higher
negative.
than
Yeah, and it's
that.
going to go up
Yeah,
to
if
about
it goes up to-
780
it goes up to
million.
seven- as it
Yeah,
gets up
I
to
mean,
700 million.
what happens then? I mean, do they anticipate? I mean, where do they think this bond rating is going to go? I mean, you can fool people, in the newspaper, and you can fool people at different meetings, but the bond rating, when people put their money up, they're not going to get fooled. They're not,
Yeah.
and especially the financiers are going to be definitely checking things out before they drop a dollar down. And you have to hide the more risk, the more interest you're going to pay, and that's something that they've got this anticipated with Foxconn. I know we've all been through it. When you have a downturn in the economy, you know how things can go bad fast.
Well, we struggle with our $100 million deficit, and that's
Yeah.
funded by bonds in Racine, and we're got a lot more people than Mount Pleasant does. And they're looking going up to 7 times our debt.
Yeah.
That's going to be a real tiger. And,
Well, they're betting on the
they're betting on
success of
Foxconn.
Foxconn,
yeah.
And
I know there's a lot of good, the talk about Foxconn and what they're going to do, and it's a lot of hype. But I'm going to tell you, it could be catastrophic disaster.
I wish them well.
Yeah, I
But,
would like to. We all do. I hope
Yeah.
they do it.
Yeah.
We don't like some of the things that Foxconn's history, and some of the. We've done a chart on the return. Just looking what the return's going to be. It's a long period, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, 40
Yeah,
minimum.
okay.
I think in some
Closer to
estimates
50.
it was closer to 50.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a
some-
long time to
Yeah.
be paying back debt.
And it's
That's a
yeah,
big-
and,
big
and
number.
that's looking at our grandchildren,
Yeah.
great grandchildren that are going to be handling this.
Assuming
And-
they stick around.
Well, yes, yeah. It's
What
you're
about
passing
other
on to the
things?
next
What about other
generation.
Things,
I mean,
George, something happens. I need a fire station. I need a water retention or something. I need something. What do? Hey, we need more money. Well, you're already $700 million. You're on the hook for this
Yeah.
amount of money. And no, I'm sorry, we can't loan that right now.
Well, I think some of the stuff that they're doing to improve infrastructure would be a lot of those
It might be, but
capital
let's
projects
face
that
it. You never know. You never
Yeah.
know what might come up. I mean, Racine's in that pickle. I mean, a police station. Nobody talks about upgrading the law enforcement center because there's probably no money for it.
Yeah. Well, they're talking. What the heck was the figure? Am I remembering right? It was $60 million or
Something
somewhere
like
in that
Yeah,
neighborhood.
it was
To build
40 or 60 something. But I mean, even so, just
Yeah.
just to do upkeep can be costly, and we've already got our taxes high. I mean, it's not a good scenario. I mean, I give downtown. They want to make it a great place to live and all that. I just don't see the money. In the long term.
It's tough until we start seeing these. We've got our population from 95,000 down to 78,000. That's almost 20% of our population has been lost. I'd like to see that coming back, and then I feel a little more confident about spending money. And 30 years ago, 40 years ago, taxes weren't that big a burden like they are now.
Right.
There weren't that many foreclosures, but now it's getting
Well,
pretty tough.
and fees and services have been increasing. I
That's
remember
right,
when the
that's
water
right.
bill was, what the heck was it? It was like $20 a quarter or something ridiculous.
Yeah, the water
Yeah.
bill has increased much faster than the cost of living, and we have all these fees that are on top of our taxes now. I look back at some old tax bills, and the difference between the first quarter and the other quarters was like a penny or two, literally. It was because they took the tax bill and divided it by 4 and didn't come out to 4, so you paid the extra 2 or 3 cents
Right.
in the first quarter, and the rest
Yeah.
they were all virtually the same. Now you get your first one, and it's $200, $300, $400, sometimes more than that, more than the rest of the quarters.
Yeah.
It's
I know it.
it's really gotten out of hand, and
What's an
someone-
old man going to do? You know?
Yeah. Pull out the old tax bills and pine for the old days, good old days.
Well, now let's get into a discussion about the pensions and the unfunded liabilities that exist in the city of Racine. Pensions being the largest part of it, health insurance being another large part of it. And I know you've studied it a little bit, and you've got something from the Wisconsin taxpayer there.
The Wisconsin Taxpayer is the name of the periodical. It's the Wisconsin Policy Forum, which, as a member of the Racine Taxpayer Association, we've been associated with the Wisconsin Taxpayer Alliance for decades, a long time, 50 years, whatever it is. And they merged with the Wisconsin Policy Forum. And they came out with this study a couple months ago regarding the unfunded liabilities of the various communities within the state. And what's alarming is how far ahead Racine is of the other communities in its debt structure.
Oh, yeah.
It's just amazing. These unfunded liabilities are from basically healthcare costs. In other words,
Well, and pensions too.
which is part of the
Healthcare.
but the unfunded, these are unfunded commitments, and they're in large degree because of the increased costs in healthcare, and the healthcare costs were attached to their pensions in order to keep salaries down. It was kind of a trade-off. But unfortunately, the healthcare costs have skyrocketed, and the people have retired, and so now the bill is coming due, and Racine leads the pack in unfunded. You want to show that chart?
The
Jim?
chart, yeah.
Our per capita is over $6,000
Per head.
That's per capita per person.
Now, is that per person who has money owed to them? In other words, the liabilities are owed to these people that much?
No,
that's estimated, or it's in each individual in Racine.
That's
our liability for this.
$75,000 people. It's $6,000 per
head.
person that's owed in unfunded liability.
And that's an estimate on today's market values.
Yes, and Beloit is in second place at $2,700.
So we're about 2.5 times the unfunded liability that Beloit has.
It's just that chart
Yep.
says it all, and it's coming due, and
Well,
it's going to get paid by the taxpayers.
As people retire and age, that's when it comes due.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how do you get out of it? I mean, this is going to be a long haul for the city of Racine. And that funding that I would assume takes away from garbage pickup, from some of the services that
That's right.
the
That's
city.
right.
I mean, we've got to pay this bill, so we're going to have to cut back on some of the. That's why the services in Racine have been.
Yeah, this is what's been
Yeah.
negotiated and determined. It's money that, okay, we owe you that when you get old and you retire and you need health care.
Now we're talking about the public works. We're talking about the police department. We're talking about the fire department.
They all come out of the same
Right.
fund.
Yeah.
There's only one.
Anybody that works at City Hall?
You get some subsidy from the state. All right, you get a little bit from the state, but that was cut way back when Scott Walker became governor, and he flattened that out a little bit. Gave the but it was particularly the schools, but they gave them a little more control over the payrolls and things like that, so that public employees could no longer go on strike to get too much money. That was all kind of frozen, so there were some trade-offs there. But and Racine has been playing this debt game, and I'm not going to get into detail of it, but they went into debt, borrowed money to pay for expenses, because then they could increase taxes. The only way you can increase taxes is if you were paying off more debt. So the way to do it
So they
was
continue to borrow.
increase debt, and then increase taxes to pay off the debt.
So you're using your credit card to buy groceries.
Yeah, it was just a trick, and
wrong with
that's
that?
being pushed to raise taxes anyway. So, but the money all comes from the taxpayer. There's no secret source of money for this. It's not coming from the federal government or the state or some little reserve someplace.
GoFundMe is not the answer.
No, it doesn't work. And we face it as a city, and it's time that the Taxpayers Association, as well as the
well, it's time the citizens know about this.
Yeah,
Yeah, we should really get down to the numbers
the
on
aldermen
this
need
thing.
to. I don't hear it talked about. We finally heard it coming up a couple years ago about $100 million debt.
Yeah.
Great, it's great to hear that, and we need to do something about that. But I haven't seen any moves in that direction.
What would you suggest, George? I mean, if it was something like, I mean, obviously this cannot continue. I mean, we're by far the highest in the state. It's going to bankrupt the community, and this, if one city is going to get bankrupt, it's going to be this one in the state. What would you do if you could wave a magic wand? What would you do to try to alleviate some of this?
My first thing would be make a libertarian for mayor.
Okay, well that can't happen. So
Yeah, I know. And the only reason I say that is because libertarians don't put so much emphasis on the importance of government. They say you can do very well without all this government.
Right.
And unfortunately, the people in government get there because they think government's important. So now,
Yeah, but we're talking about what do we do about the mess that exists.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Now, all right. So now, yeah. For me, there's some things you can do. I mean, but they're not going to be things you like. And that's, but once you were to get into it, you would find out, hey, it's not so workable after all. So if you wanted me to give you a couple of suggestions, I'm willing to do it. All right. One of them is you get rid of these pensions and put people just like they're doing in the private sector. They go to 401ks.
Yep.
All right. Mm-hmm. The private sector gave up with that a long time ago because of the nature of healthcare costs and the stock market wasn't providing the percentage increase it's supposed to do and all that type, a lot of other financial things. Another thing is I think we got way too many police officers. The people that supposedly really need it, the inner city police, go talk to them about how often they call the police.
Yeah.
Well, we heard just the other day we were talking about that, and we're like 25 officers short by some standard.
Well,
in this community.
Here, go back to that.
But the thing I'm saying is when things happen in their neighborhood, they don't call the police.
Yeah.
If someone's robbed or shot or something like that.
I understand. I mean, I fire, yes, you need some kind of fire protection. EMT stuff, I get that. Yes, I can understand that. I'm not sure maybe we're over.
Well, even EMT stuff. Some of those people, I've known people to call up because their kid's sick and he needs an aspirin real fast, and so if they take this and spend they don't have to pay the $300, $400.
I think we have spent.
There's things you can do.
Right. There's places we can cut.
There's things you can do about transportation. There's some really great.
But
things
here's
that
the
you can
thing,
do.
George. We saw it on the show here. We got Dave Brown from the finance company, finance department, comes up and they give themselves a $4 million raise. No. Nobody says anything. You got a $500 million unfunded debt here, but yet the employees, we're going to give ourselves a raise because we feel we're being cheated.
There would be a real good place to use some of that reserve.
That right through the city council.
And they just let it go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody clearly understood what was going to happen.
No.
They
don't understand finances at the city council at all.
Well, then it was a very deceptive presentation that they received as well.
Well, I think Sandy Widener called it out, but we went nowhere because they wanted to do it. They wanted to, they're good people, we want to help them because they're our friends. They're not thinking about taxpayers and citizens. This is probably, I mean, I hate to say this so much, but I've seen a lot of common council. This may be the worst I've ever seen. I mean, with absolutely no knowledge of what they're there for or any kind of idea what the actual purpose and how to protect the taxpayers or at least financially.
Can you imagine the potential of this city? We got the worst city council and we're just it's close to having the best downtown.
Well, it's really, it's something. I mean, I hate to say that. I mean, there's some nice people, but truthfully, they have no idea how to run a city, and it shows.
Yeah,
and it's showing.
Well, if you're going to get rid of the debt, this little thing I'm going to say is just true beyond anything else, and that is you're going to have to change your ways.
Yep.
You're going to have to change the way you spend money, and you're going to have to quit spending money the way you're spending money. And if you're not willing to do that, if everything the government doing is so important that you got to keep everybody there that's doing it and doing everything that you're doing, okay, just get ready for really crazy
George,
times.
Here's what
when it
happens.
comes to
The
finances.
administration is actually running the city. So when you
Absolutely,
if
it's
you
running
have the
the city.
administration running it, what are you going to do? We're going to spend money, and we're going to continue on spending money. The Common Council should be there to curb that, or at least ask the questions. Apparently, the budget's coming up now, and I don't think that budget. And I've watched the budget presentations that used to be. They'd come up and they'd explain why they're asking for money or what their budget proposal is to the Common Council.
Well, tell
You
the
don't see
viewers
that.
who the administration is, because when you just say the administration, it kind of like...
Well, you're director of finance, city development,
Your Commissioner of Public Works,
administration.
the
assessor's office.
the
city attorney's
administrator.
office.
Right.
It's non-elected officials that are running the government. That's your administration. The elected officials, your alderman and your mayor.
Well, they're running the operations of the city,
Right.
which is, when you say government, that can be a little bit misleading. Because
Yeah.
I think people have a concept of government.
Well,
as-
government. The aldermen are included in the government.
Yeah.
Right?
But aldermen are your representatives to curb that administration. You do what I tell you to do because we need less money spent here, maybe some more placed over here, but they have to get into the
For those people familiar with the Constitution, the administration is more or less the executive branch of the government.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, your judicial is theoretically separate from the administration, as is your alderman, your legislative body. So it's roughly that.
And they're supposed to design and set policy and enforce it. Well,
The-
judicial
the
enforces it,
the
but
aldermen are supposed to
design it,
yeah,
right.
they are ultimately responsible. They are the governing body, and we've covered that in earlier issues here. They are the governing body. It is not the mayor. It is not the administration. The governing body is the aldermen. That's what they're supposed to do. They make the rules and regulations. They decide what's going to happen, and then the administration makes it happen.
But the problem is the administration has been coming to the city council and saying we need this, that, and the other thing, and they give a good
You want to
presentation.
go so far, you go into the RDA, look how much
And the
money.
government's gotten so big and so
Yeah.
hard to
And the city
understand
council
and
just
see
goes, "Oh,
that
that
the
sounds
city
good, that
council,
sounds
yeah, when you got this scientific experiment going on that you're a layman and you don't really know what's going on over there, and the scientific guy that is in charge of it says, well, here's what's happening over there. You have no choice but to believe him.
Yeah.
Now, this is not that difficult. Some of the things that the administration gets involved with, the alderman can understand. It's not like a complicated scientific experiment, shooting a rocket to the moon or something like that. This is a simple thing like garbage pickup, or pay rate, pay.
Oh, how
for
about a question?
thing, or
How many
tax
garbage trucks do
collection.
we need to replace? Can we get away with maybe keeping some of these garbage trucks a little longer? Maybe some of the water department. I mean, my God.
Well,
I
Jim,
look at-
that's a real good, because I'll tell you,
simple
there's a
question.
great big $400 million document over 20 years. It's $20 million a year called a Capital Improvements Plan. Look at that.
Yeah.
There is money you don't have to spend. Those are capital improvements plans, and you might just take and say, okay, we're just going to hold off spending anything out of this capital improvement plan for a year or something like that until we pay down some of this debt. And that's $20 million right there.
Maybe we don't need new marble in the bathrooms of City Hall,
Yeah.
but we went ahead and did it.
Well,
Well,
we'll spend a couple $100,000 on garbage trucks every year, whether we need them or not.
Yeah.
That's in the budget. And other communities don't do it that way. They wait till the garbage truck is on its last
Right.
wheels, last spark plugs, and saying, okay, it just
You
won't
don't
go
buy a new one. You take
won't
the
go
old one
anymore.
and you leave it at the landfill.
Yeah, that's right. You sell it for scrap, and,
Yeah.
and we've seen a budget just like this. This is another thing you can do. Now, this is something you people could like. You could look at that Kenosha budget, and this has been done. Sandy Widener was the first one that brought it up several years ago, and say they show when they buy a garbage truck. Here's the garbage truck that we're buying. Here's the garbage truck we're trading in. Here's what we're getting, how much we're getting for it. Here's what part the state pays for. It's all one garbage truck, one street at a time.
Well, and
their
what you're
capital
talking about
improvements
is you're talking about the basic layout of the budget, the presentation, the way it is when you look at it. So
That's right.
you can look at the Kenosha budget and go, oh, that makes
And
sense.
let's look
I
at
know where that
Kenosha's
money's
downtown.
going.
Let's
Right.
look at, you talk about the barometer of a downtown. Kenosha's got a downtown because, you know why? And Kenosha never really had anything that was really anywhere near to Racine. Racine always was. It was envious of Racine because we did have a great looking downtown. It
Yeah.
was a very functional downtown. They never really did. Look who's got it now.
Yeah.
And the fact is,
We should have never inspired that jealousy in them.
We got a rock and roll in downtown, man.
Just
Just have street lights and theaters with those
Yeah.
traveling lights. It was
but
going.
I mean,
Now it looks quaint. You go into it and say,
it's
is this really it?
we just don't have the leadership, and we haven't had it. And
But there are some things you could do. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, I think
anyway.
you did.
Yeah, you
It
did
can be
good.
do it, but it starts off with somebody
Gotta make some
saying we
changes.
need to make a change, and then you
Change
can't
our
be
ways.
afraid to change it because when those changes start happening, you want to see explosions, folks. You haven't seen nothing yet.
Well, you have to make changes and you have to be transparent. You know, that's the transparency, the lack thereout around here.
Otherwise, you don't get public support because you're going to need public support for all the backfiring that's going to come from you're killing all that type of stuff.
yeah.
Now,
When we start
speaking of
programs.
downtowns, we're gonna mention one final thing here before we close off this particular episode, and that's downtown Darien, Wisconsin.
yes,
Jim and I just stopped in there a couple of times recently while we were out on the campaign trail. We stopped at a little place called Deb's Country Cafe. Good food. It was great. I mean,
phenomenal.
she raises a lot of her own produce out in the garden. All of the meat that they serve is like local sourced, so it's like farmers in the area are providing the beef and the pork.
George, you'd love this place.
Oh,
I mean, I said, what do you got for sides? She's, well, we got the cucumber salad right out of the garden.
Yeah,
That's what I'm having. It was excellent.
Wow.
and her husband's making the food in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a nice little team that they got going
and they
there.
got a gal on Mondays makes fried chicken, and then they've got specials during the week. But I mean, it's homemade. It's for
Yeah.
real. It's that country little
yeah, it was-
diner.
yeah, we
cafe.
really
Wow.
we really
Where
enjoyed
was
it.
Where was this?
right
Downtown Darien.
Darien, Wisconsin,
Darien.
Walworth County. Yeah, so take a ride. It's really worth the time.
Really liked them, and we wanted to mention that they're
Yeah, we
out
thought
there.
we'd say
so-
something, and hopefully maybe some people from here or some of the viewers. You get out in Walworth County, right off the Interstate 43, and definitely worth the stop. They're only open from 6 to 2, so you got to hit them during the day. But the food is just...
And we plug downtown businesses too once
We
in a while.
do.
We plug things in Racine, so
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah. No, but I just
we just
thought-
happen to really like
Yeah,
this place.
yeah, yeah. He went back again. So
So there you go. Say good morning to the wonderful
Morning.
people out there watching us. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week.